Good morning. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. So, good morning to everybody. I hope that you had a good start of the day in Davos. Sunny day today. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Carlos Moreira. I am the founder and CEO of WiseKey, which is the original company that has become now a group, as WiseKey is now also the owner of CLSQ, which is a NASDAQ-listed company dealing with semiconductors and post-quantum, and also on WISAT, which is a space company that we created, which is going to go to the NASDAQ, by the way, by the end of April. So we have 3 listed companies on the NASDAQ. It's not very easy to manage, but the concentration is paying off as these companies are creating what we call convergence. And this is the subject today of the meeting. So this is the 21st year that we organized this gathering. We have done that in cooperation with TechAcore and also with several universities that they have been developing with us the content of those meetings. And the reason of the name Convergence is that until now, our approach has been to deep dive in a specific technology areas. We started very early with e-commerce here. I remember the first meeting. Then we have been talking about cloud, about cryptocurrencies, about tokenization, about metaverse, about identity management, then AI, and now quantum. Because quantum, we are now in quantum where we were in AI 5 years ago. This is something that is becoming a real thing, both on the full play quantum, but also on the PQC, the post-quantum technology, where our company has been invested heavily and has become a major player. So we have amazing roundtable. We have a lot of speakers, and this is, I really apologize for having so many speakers, but the objective here is not, obviously, is a brainstorming, right? We prefer Len to speak less, but to provide insights from their complementarities, because they are all world leaders in their subjects, and we can learn a lot from them. So we're going to have 3 roundtables. The first one is on the subject of convergence. So we're going to be analyzing how the 4th industrial revolution is actually creating a phenomenon which was not expected to be that early, but is already there, which is technologies converging. So technologies are feeding each other. We are similar to the history of the humankind when in the Renaissance period, mathematics, geometrics, philosophy, architecture, design got together, and you have this amazing Renaissance period where human creativity expanded beyond the silos that they were located at that time. We are in a similar period. We are in a period where computing space is becoming the next frontier for computing. We are talking about sending satellites, and they will do computing from the space, data centers in the space, post-quantum and quantum technology emerging as a major problem and solution. And all that evolved into something which is dear to me, which is where is the location of the humans? How can we protect humans? We might be the last generation that have the responsibility of making sure that the humans are there for the next cycle of development. We need to redefine the role of humans, because we're going to have technologies that they are going to be more intelligent than we are. But we have a uniqueness that this technology will never have. So those are the discussions of the roundtable. So in order to accelerate the process, we are a bit late, by the way, and we have 3 roundtables. The first one being on the Age of Convergence. I would like just to maybe run very fast about you guys to introduce yourself, and also what are your specialties, and then we move into the Q&A that has been very discussed. So I give Mark, you can start.
Thank you, Carlos. Hello, no, the microphone doesn't work? No?
It works.
It works, okay. So my name is Mark Minovich. I'm from New York. The Big Apple, or whatever is left of Big Apple now, okay? Things are changing now, different regimes, right? So I am representing in Silicon Valley, a strategic partner of a leading venture capital fund called Mayfield. And in New York, I'm running and been involved with a venture accelerator strategy group called Going Global Ventures, where we advise governments and we advise some of the biggest companies. I sit on a lot of boards, and I'm very privileged to be on the board with you, Carlos, and many other companies. So great to be here.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Jonathan Yamas. I'm leading the Silcoin division for the group, where we actually walk the talk of converging our technologies all together, where we can actually combine quantum and post-quantum technology, but also identity, semiconductors, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. So we're going to see how we make things actually work, not to deliver use cases, but practical value for the society.
It's a lot of technology. So, Eric Adolfi, I'm from Texas, US, actually born in New York. My company, Forward Edge AI, we focus almost entirely on defensive capability, and we're working at the intersection of cyber, quantum, and AI. My background, this panel is very exciting for me. I grew up in New York, as I said. I am the National Capital Business Ethics Award winner and the 4th runner-up of the American Business Ethics Award. So these topics are very important to me, and I think that we can't speak enough about it. But I'm going to be focusing my thoughts on 2 real subjects. One is instrumental convergence, which is something that you may or may not have heard about, and also strategic convergence. Thank you.
Good morning, all. My name's Mark Hughes. I'm the Global Managing Partner of Cybersecurity at IBM. My areas are clearly security. I've been in security for many years. I've been a global CISO for a telco. Now I run, as I say, the security business at IBM. Particular areas of focus are AI in security and how we're revolutionizing and transforming everything to do with the stuff that we've been doing for many years. Secondly, post-quantum cryptography. And lastly, how we secure AI, a subject that we should be thinking a lot more about. So looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you, Mark. Check, check. There we go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sol Rashidi. I've been in the data processing space since the late 90s, and then a wonderful milestone happened. In 2011, IBM decided to launch Watson into the marketplace. So I've been in the AI space since 2011. I helped evolve and launch Watson, so a lot of fun, fast-forward failures, if you would. There's an advantage and a disadvantage to being first to market, and you never know what you don't know until you stumble upon it. But we took it to market for healthcare and for financial services. From there, the career began. I was the world's first chief AI officer, appointed back in 2016. I've held up roles like chief data officer, chief analytics officer for companies like Merck, Estee Lauder, Sony. I just recently left AWS, Amazon, as their head of technology for North America for their startups division. So Perplexity and Anthropic were my customers, and my solution architects and engineers were helping them scale. At this point and at this juncture in my career, I did leave corporate America. There was a fundamental, I think, calling that came about, and it's rooted in security. Securing the future workforce, because I've seen the outcome of overdependency on technology and us losing our critical thinking, our ability to think deeply, independently, and with a long list of to-dos, we're in this very much copy and paste mode, and there are some advantages and disadvantages with now artificial intelligence being introduced to the mix. So for me, securing the workforce and making sure that we don't over-automate and we don't over-AI everything. And so I'm really focused on workforce architecture, and I've launched my platform, the Human Amplification Index, because I don't want us to just quantifiably measure productivity and efficiency, but also the effectiveness of our human capital. And then securing AI, agentic AI, generative AI, applied AI. So I'm the chief strategy officer for a company called Sierra. And what we are doing is fundamentally saying, okay, enterprises, if you're really going to adopt artificial intelligence, there's a way to do it so that it's secure. And even though there's FOMO and there's a race to get something out into the market, exposure, leakage, data privacy, these things matter. So how do we run governance and security in parallel to innovation so we don't slow you down, but we actually accelerate you safely?
Thank you.
Now, of course, is this working? So hi, I'm Christina Dolan, and Hi, I'm Christina Dolan, and I'm happy to serve on the CLSQ board. I wear many hats. I'm CEO of a company called Prime Radiant that's focused on the digital footprint of executives and their homes, because that's the biggest threat vector. I'm an adjunct at Columbia University. I I co-founded a company in the health tech space where we're doing trials in the EU. We're using federated AI at the edge with IoT devices for transplant patients with great ROI, tiny AI, and no energy usage. I have a new book, Cyber Fiduciary, coming out that talks about the sort of regulatory landscape that makes cyber now the new Sarbanes-Oxley moment. There are other things, but I'll leave that there. Oh wait, I just wanted to say, I was CEO of AI, an MIT spin-out that one of my professors at MIT had recruited me for, Nicholas Negroponte, with Chomsky's students, sort of about 20 years ago, and he's very controversial in this space. So it's been an interesting journey to watch AI evolve as it has. So thanks.
Hi, I'm David Schreier. I am a professor of practice in AI and innovation with Imperial College London and also managing director of a venture foundry called Visionary Future. I'm really interested in how technology can solve big problems at scale for humanity. So in my work at Imperial College, I teach the AI startups class, and yes, we have ethical training embedded into the class, but we've got 150 students from across business and computing and electrical engineering. We even have one health sciences student. That was a new win for us this year. All in mixed teams, building new companies. And I teach a fintech strategy class, but a lot of my time at Imperial is spent working on what this says, which is Trusted AI Alliance, which is a multi-university initiative to deliver responsible and trustworthy AI to the world. So we've got, yes, the panel is starting. We've got Imperial, ETH Zurich, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Duke. I'm probably leaving somebody out, but we've got about 3,000 scientists, AI engineers and scientists under our span that we can access. Harvard Medical School, that was in order to try and sort of solve these problems. We focus on three main areas. One is AI systems assurance, which is making sure AI does what it's supposed to and not what it's not supposed to. So right now we are working on standards for algorithmic audit. So all the different consulting firms have their own unique flavor of how they audit algorithms. And so the UK government asked us to bring together all the firms and say, let's agree on a common practice for saying this algorithm's okay and this one isn't. The second is workforce and labor. And so we are very concerned about what's going on, especially with our latest piece of work that we've just launched, which is called Intelligence Capital, which is a new theory of the firm and theory of markets that we dropped on Monday here, and happy to talk to anyone about that later. And finally, AI for humanity, which is how can we have AI deliver on the promises of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we're excited to have collaborators. If anyone wants to come play with us, jump in, and the water's warm.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicolas Ramseyer. I'm from Geneva. I have a tech background because I studied mathematics. But I had the chance to be elected at the local parliament of Geneva when I was 22 years old. Then I headed the largest political party there. And I worked abroad and came back. And since 3 months, I've been elected to the Security Council at the federal level, which advises the parliament on security issues. First of all, I love debate. I love big panels. I'm very happy to see that we have a large panel because I strongly believe that if we put a lot of smart people together and they brainstorm, we generally have better ideas. This is why I also created last year a foundation, which works as a think tank in Geneva. And I really look forward to having a deep discussion today because I'm really trying to bring more engineering and technological ideas into politics because, of course, I love my country. I think we're a great country. I really like politics, but I can tell you not everybody is, let's say, fresh and up-to-date when it comes to technology in parliaments. And I think we really need new forces. So I really look forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it is amazing the quality of the thought leadership that we have in this panel, and also in the tables, because I recognize a lot of amazing people that they contribute to the Davos dialogue. This is something that when we come to Davos, people ask you, well, why are you coming to Davos? Is that because you are raising money or because you want power or because you want prestige? Actually not. You come into Davos because you want to really help to improve the state of the world. This is the slogan of Davos, right? And it's our collective responsibility to do that. So we are friends. Some of them, they have been coming for decades, and we are still here. And we encourage also the new generation to continue that work because it's essential. That Davos becomes the epicenter of ideas and actions to be executed. So we are going to be moving now into the panel discussion. So I'm going to start first with Mark Hughes on the, actually, are we witnesses a true technology shift, or is that merely only an acceleration of existing paradigm?
Well, that's a great question, Carlos, and I know many will talk about that, and we've all got our own ideas. I think two things are happening in terms of the technology shift around AI that we observe at IBM. So here's a paradox, which is that 80% of CIOs, we surveyed them recently through the IBM Institute of Business Value, 80% of them say that they can see the potential for revenue growth with AI, yet 24% haven't seen yet any return on that. And so if we unpack that a bit, what's going on? And here's what we see is happening. Firstly, on one hand, we see a really strong push clearly for how productivity gains can be made with early experimentation and implementation of AI, which is great. And we're seeing some stuff from there, but that's not really where we see the future. So Carlos, coming back to the question, I think that there's the two aspects to it. One is if we continue to pursue the path of AI being simply a productivity type approach in most enterprises, there's going to be good output, but it's not really where it's going to be. What we see now is those organizations completely beginning to rethink how they architect what they are doing. In other words, not taking existing processes and just trying to make them, that might not have been the best processes in those enterprises, and trying to make them more effective and more efficient. We've done that through automation for many years. Yes, AI provides a bit of a leap there, but now actually rethinking how they architect and wire their business to say, well, what can we open up that is new, and how do we really see that happening? Well, firstly, getting their data under control. So really thinking about a data architecture of how the enterprise data on which many of the different models are trained on is harnessed and captured, that then allows those agents to actually do their work. The second thing then is the really revolution around what we call agentic AI. Everyone's familiar with that. But just to be clear, what that really means is how agents work in an A-to-A way, and how controlling agents can then really begin to rethink and learn how and what the way in which the organization should operate, and really then turn that into real growth opportunities for those businesses. So data architecture, understanding then how to implement that AI in a way in which actually is safe as well, coming back to what I said earlier, which is very lacking mainly in I see many enterprises, and how they think about the identity of those agents and how they work together to really change the nature of their business completely. So really, Carlos, I see those two things happening. And of course, it's those that are rethinking their business in that way that we can see real return coming from what they're doing.
Thank you very much, Mark. And the other Mark, the same question to you, maybe a bit more on the focus of how you are helping governments actually to go into that transition, as you're a leading voice in FII, in Fortune, Wall Street. I see you everywhere. And
I see you everywhere also. We see each other. So, Carlos, a very fair question. First of all, have you heard yesterday the talk by our Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick? If you haven't, you should go back. What he said is very accurate. I know it's painful for a lot of people. I will say it anyway. The age of globalization is over. Right now, we're in a different era. We're in the era of sovereignty. In the era of sovereignty, you need convergence of technologies. You need a completely different thinking. You need to understand data belongs to somebody, to an entity. It belongs to a country that wants to be competitive. It wants to be sovereign. You have technology and innovation. It belongs to somebody, an enterprise organization or a group. Same goes for processes or compute power. So right now, the world is a very different world. The world order that we knew has practically collapsed. And we have to recognize this, whether we are Americans, Europeans, from Asia, from every country. And right now, you need to focus on sovereignty. And this is the type of stuff that I'm involved with governments around the world. Every government right now, and even the biggest enterprises in the world, if you're a financial institution, whether you're Franklin Templeton, whether you're in Aramco or Hitachi or others, everybody's trying to come up with sovereign strategy. So that's the major change. But the point of this panel here today, Carlos, you brought us together, convergence. Keep in mind, again, we're not in globalization state. Everybody's competing for every possible resource. And now, as you mentioned, Mark, from IBM's perspective and global perspective, you now have humans are finally getting the help that they need. We don't have enough resources, we don't have enough talent, and we don't have enough humans. We have to recognize the constraint of resources around the world. Help is coming in from this convergence model, and it's coming in from agentic. And agentic is not just a bunch of agents running around. They are not just tools. It's an massive industrial transformation to provide autonomy to your businesses. Humans may not be around to complete certain tasks or oversee, but those specific autonomous agents are going to help us to accelerate our business, to create competitive power, economic power. It's all connected right now. Economic, technological, societal power is all connected. Then you need a new type of technologies which are emerging, and Carlos mentioned, and we're going to talk a lot about it, quantum. Not only quantum, because quantum will allow you to break in national secure systems like cybersecurity system, communication to satellites, communication to some very important strategic records that the enterprises or governments have. So we need to secure this. This is post-quantum technologies. So you need to make sure that it's unbreakable, post-quantum technologies. You need new quantum computers are being born, atomic quantum. Other things are going on. So remember, you have agentic. Then Jensen Huang just came out in April, and he said, forget about all of this. Yes, we're focusing on infrastructure and data centers. That's really important. We need to build foundation. And some people say, well, we're not spending so much on AI. We are. The world is spending incredible amount of money on national infrastructure and data centers. We have 5,400 data centers in the United States alone. Middle East is also kicking up the gear. That's happening. But the next stage is even bigger. Physical AI is coming in. It's coming in a big way. It's going to change humanity overall. Every job will be impacted because of this. And we have to see it from a positive perspective, because physical AI is going to shift the world. It's going to shift the supply chains, logistics chains, data centers, infrastructures. There's a reason why Elon Musk is spending a considerable amount of time right now developing Optimus humanoid robots. Again, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough people. And I think that when we combine both on the convergence side, quantum, physical AI, when we combine agentic AI, and we now understand that we're in the age of sovereignty, this is what the governments are focusing on, and this is that massive industrial transformation.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. I fully agree. I think you unpack a lot of information there, which is very interesting and will be debated during the different questions in the panel. So maybe moving now to a more academic thinking, David, and what are you teaching to the next generation of leaders with Imperial College? What makes this moment different from the previous technology revolutions in terms of speed, irreversibility, and systematic risk?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is something that we're addressing in our intelligence capital theory, because I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was trying to answer that question for myself. So at the risk of going back in history, 2 years ago, 2023, the investment bank Evercore ISI, which at the time was a #1 ranked institutional investor research shop on Wall Street, came to me and said, look, we're trying to put together initiation of coverage on generative AI. Help us understand it. Give us, be the macro strategist. Help us work with our team and put the framework together. And with that, we did a fundamental decomposition of the impact of 52 different AI technologies on labor and the economy, and broke it down across 800 occupations and 160 million jobs, and came up with some really interesting insights. But also we came up with a tool, which is still up there, the AI Impact Navigator, so you can put in the ticker for any Russell 3000 stock, and it'll tell you by job function, impact of AI in that company. And we felt like we had a handle on it. All right, we got the tool, we got the report, it's a good report. The one thing that came out of that was, I had to come up with a forecast number for how much money would be spent on AI in 2025. And so I came up with my number, and I mean, is this Chatham House? Okay, so I came up, it's not Chatham, all right. let's say that there was a vigorous discussion around the bull case forecast, right? A bull, bear, and base case forecast. The bull case forecast, I had one number. They weren't comfortable. That was too aggressive, and so we ended up with 362 billion. So as the 2025 forecast, so up from 150 to 362, and they felt, well, they were laughing at me. They're like, oh, Dave, come on, it's the base case. Every month I get a phone call. We're tracking it. It's tracking with the base case. Who would care to guess how much was spent on AI last year? 1.5 trillion. So as I like to say, I like to quote John Kenneth Galbraith, who said, economic forecasting was invented to make astrology look good. So with that said, I had to update my numbers because in December, I'm looking at it, and Rod Brooks from the Media Lab did his update on his forecast. I said, I'm going to take some inspiration from Rob, and I'll update my numbers. And so I did come up with a number for what the Magnificent Seven are going to be worth in 2033. Come see me later if you want to know what that number is. But I was trying to look at labor as well. I'm trying to understand what's going on with GDP and labor and jobs, because everyone's saying the economy is doing great. And then my students can't get jobs. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't understand. And so we dug in, and I dug in, and finally I started vibe thinking with Gemini and ChatGPT. So I give them credit. The three of us came up with this theory of change. But we looked at something called Okun's Law. Okun was an economist who in 1962 noticed that every time GDP goes up 2%, unemployment goes down 1%. And this is a very tight correlation. This is 0.7, 0.8. This was true from 1993 to 2000, from 2002 to 2008, from 2010 to 2019. Held up, looks beautiful. 2025 comes along, and we have what's known as a positive Okun coefficient, which is not supposed to be possible. Something weird is going on where GDP went up and unemployment went up. And then I started digging in further and found phantom jobs. So let's break this into parts. 1.2 million jobs were from people being fired, were lost last year. And everyone told me, I didn't know what I was talking about. It's not convergence technologies. It's not AI. It's just because they overhired in 21 and 22 after COVID, and they fired a bunch of people. And so they're just cleaning that up. Or it's Trump laying people off, or it's nothing to worry about. I'm like, I don't know. It looks weird. What am I missing? And I found the missing piece. I'm calling them phantom jobs, because they ghosted you. In the US, there are 19 million jobs that should have been created that were not created. In Europe, there are 9 million jobs that should have been created that were not created. It gets worse. I don't want to sound doom and gloom. I will give a happy ending to this story. But if we extrapolate this trend forward, 10 years from now, if we don't change what we're doing, 10 years from now, we're going to have 155 million jobs that should have been created that were not created. What does that mean for the society? That does not mean protests. That means in every country on the planet, you have riots on the scale of the French Revolution. This is not small, this is big. But on the other hand, we have convergence to save us. We have new technologies that can uplift humanity. And I dug further and further and further. I found three kinds of intelligence and three kinds of ways that we can move forward. Replacement is what I think Mark was mentioning earlier, generates about a 0 to 20% ROI. You take an existing process and person and you fire them and you put an AI in. Augmentation is where you have the human as the master and the AI as the flunky, and there you get a 200 to 600% ROI. All right, we're starting to get somewhere. We're creating some value. But if we bring biologic and synthetic intelligence together, we converge them into symbiotic intelligence, we get a 3,000% ROI. Unless you think that's just academic theory, I've done it empirically in the real world, building an AI accelerator for the government of Canada. Come see me afterwards if you want to hear about that. So it is possible to turn this around and get out of this scarcity mindset of we don't have enough people or we don't have enough anything into an abundance mindset of we are all going to uplift. And quantum, as a closer, quantum is what I think could be the exponential factor to take that 3,000% and turn it into 30,000% or 300,000%. And that's a utopia that I want to live in.
Thank you, David. And just moving to Nicola. Nicola is a young global leader in Switzerland, ex-politician, but also mathematician. And now actually working on trust model, which is something that I work on my career, especially putting human at the center of gravity of the fourth industrial revolution. So But this is always, I mean, Switzerland is a very specific case because it's a direct democracy. People take decisions on what they want and government follows them, right, more or less. But who should define the rules of governance? Is that the government itself, the market, the technology, or the society at large?
Let me first say that I believe democracy still works in Switzerland. But this is based on and it's very interesting what you said just before, it's based on the fact we have a strong middle class, and it's based on the fact that people have jobs and people like the democratic system and feel involved. My fear that we're seeing now, and if we don't address it, it will blow up at some point, is that we always had a balance between left and right, and we always had a balance between income coming from work and income coming from capital. Now, AI is a great, AI and the technology we're developing are great. So I come from a mathematical background, I love it. But the fact is we're transitioning into a world where the work is bringing less and less income and the capital is bringing more and more income. So we're transitioning, this is my theory, we're transitioning from a world where we had a left-right balance in politics to a capital and non-capital. And more elections look like this. And if we don't address this topic, and I believe this is why we have more and more unemployment where GDP grows, because the production grows, wealth grows, but it's not benefiting everybody equally. Now, if we don't correct this model, and I don't see any trend to correct this model, to tell you the truth, I'm less and less sure that we will have a democratic system. And that's my real fear. And to come back to the question, who should define the rule of technology, I think the first question is who can define the rule? Because, of course, in a perfect world, we could imagine, for example, a council with experts around the world respecting each other and finding great rules to defend our system. But the question is who can, and right now who can are those who are developing this technology, and those who are developing this technology are mostly in the United States. And in the United States, they have the biggest compute power, they have the biggest source of energy, cheap source of energy, and they have a lot of talents. And talents which we create in Europe or Asia tend to, I would say, I was going to say flee, but let's say move to the United States. So I think the first thing we should do is work on ourselves, be a bit more sovereign, try to bring our own infrastructure in Switzerland or in Europe, try to collaborate better with the European Union in a way that we can create our own system, because once we have our own system, we can bring our own value. And we can decouple from this model where it's only the tech sector, the leader of the tech sector who will decide. And by the way, I'm a right-wing politician, so it came a long way from these 10 years I've been doing politics to go from what I believed when I started politics and what I'm saying now. But I strongly believe that Switzerland needs to gain more its own infrastructure and more independence in order to be able to bring its own value. Because when we look at the physical world, the digital world, even now the biological world, they're all completely interconnected. So that's my take.
Thank you very much. And just to second on that, on the uniqueness of Switzerland trust model, and this is something that you are doing now, and I am totally involved on it. I think Switzerland is a great country to build companies. That's what I did it myself. It's not the best country to scale them. You need to go to the US and the NASDAQ and raise money there. But if you are successful raising money there and listing, if you come back again to Switzerland and you inject that funding into the innovation of the country, it's amazing. Switzerland is every year, since the last maybe 10 years, #1 innovation country in the world, before US, before Israel, before any of the other. So it's an amazing opportunity. But again, we have this weakness where, and Tom Berry is there, which helped us to do my first IPO. He knows very well from UBS times that it's very hard to scale companies here and very hard to obtain the same valuations of American companies. And that's why sometimes we have to sell our companies to the bigger players. So it doesn't to be corrected, because Switzerland could become a powerhouse in the fourth industrial revolution. So, yeah,
just very quickly add one point here. I completely agree. If you want to make a change, you need to be part of the system. And for this, we need to bring talents to Switzerland. And we have the right approach when it comes to the start, but when it comes to scaling, we don't have the right approach. And there are many, many examples we could increase. For example, the Swiss National Bank is now heavily investing in tech companies outside Switzerland. Why aren't we simply investing in tech companies in Switzerland? This could be a starter. Also, we could in Geneva, I'm pushing to create an ecosystem in Geneva which favors the implementation of these companies and these talents. And also, we could also work on programs which facilitate the venue of talents. Because when I was discussing with the state of Geneva, because we're currently creating this ecosystem, They told us that in Switzerland we like rules, we need to follow the rules no matter what happens, and are not ready to discuss any facilitation for very, very concrete, very simple things, such as visa and opening a bank account. So we had cases where we were convincing tech companies from Brazil, from Middle East to come to Geneva, and their simple employees had problem getting visa, or it took 6 months to open a bank account. So there are a lot of very, very concrete things which in Switzerland we need to change the mindset and create some fast track in order to bring these talents and this capital. So these are one of the elements one could work on.
Thank you very much, Nicola. So moving to Saul, I was really impressed about your presentation at the Abraham House and your human-centric approach. Is actually very close to my heart, because when I was in the UN, that was my first commitment, to protect the humans, and I couldn't succeed in the UN. That's why I created a company with the same objective, and I think this is an amazing, way to view. You were also the first chief AI officer, which is amazing. So how, as AI system move from tools to autonomous, reasonable agents, how do we ensure alignment with human values rather than market or a state objective? And maybe also the point that you raised in the Abraham, which is also very important, how we transfer those values to the next generation.
There's no shortage of... Dud. Listen, there's no shortage of conversations around artificial intelligence. For those of us in this space, we're getting whiplash. We can't keep up. I can't even imagine what it must be like not being in the space, but going into meetings and summits and conferences and hearing about AI this and AI that. I've hit AI fatigue, and I'm in the darn space and made a career out of it. I can't even imagine what it must be like from the outside. I'm not a researcher. I'm not an academic. I'm not the CEO of a famous company that's worth, $140 billion. I execute. It's what I've made my reputation on. I'm fundamentally a practitioner. And I've done over 200 plus deployments over the course of my career, building AI capabilities, not just plugging and chugging a tool within enterprises to help them grow. Okay. In that trajectory, though, I came in with a very innocent point of view. This is amazing tech. Everyone must leverage this amazing tech. Let's go. Okay, you mature a little bit. This is amazing tech. Oh crap, this is a lot harder than I anticipated it was going to be. It's okay, let's keep going. This is amazing tech. We've hit amazing success at proof of concept because it's a contained environment, sanitized data sets. Security restrictions are constrained. You get the cheerleaders, the excited people using it, but then you run into issues when you're trying to scale it and put it into production. You're like, what's happening? Why did everything I put into my POC and prototype not scale the way I anticipated? Then the next evolution is, this is great, this is amazing, it's really hard, but it's okay, we're gonna get over it. And I know now what to put into production, but why isn't anyone using it? Adoption is now low. And everyone's on a very different maturity curve, but undeniably, everyone is gonna go through this process when they are trying to build these advanced capabilities, because you still have most of your workers operating on Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint. And now you're trying to leapfrog into artificial intelligence, which fundamentally requires an element of maturity with your data, your infrastructure, and your talent pool. For most organizations, it's still extremely overwhelming, but you get the board pressure, you get the executive pressure, and it's go do. Okay. So what's happening now is most companies and most of the hype that you're hearing is really using AI and not doing AI. Using AI is when your company buys a few hundred Copilot licenses. You get taught on the do's and don'ts of prompt engineering, go summarize an email and take meeting notes. With all due respect, that's actually not generating the compounding revenues that everyone's expecting. Doing AI is a very different beast, but it requires focus and funding and prudence and patience, things that are just attributions we have lost over time, because now you're taking a function and you're decomposing it into tasks and subtasks, and you're deciding what should be outsourced to the machines versus what should be kept in-house. In theory, that sounds great, but we all know that you have to have a human in the loop, right, to avoid risk exposure? We are okay, because we've developed that craft, that expertise, if you will. But if we don't hire the younger generation, who's going to be the human in the loop in 5 to 8 years? We are creating a massive gap right now with the choices we're making. And to quote Charlie Munger, he would always say, show me the incentives and I'll show you us human behaviors. So the convergence with human, because I've seen some of my deployments live, of the over 200 deployments I've done, about 67 made it into production, and of the 67, 38 are still in use. I've seen the impacts on the workforce. One, it does create intellectual atrophy. You're creating a strategy for a new market channel, for a new product. You don't have the answers. You can't hire a management consulting firm and pay them a few $1 million of doing it. What are you going to do? ChatGPT. The way it communicates with you is so sophisticated, you actually believe it and you copy and paste it. That is actually a behavior. And I've given experimentations to my most senior teams and junior teams, and the deliverables are beautiful. But when you start asking the whys as an experienced individual, you'll actually find out those that are AI produced are superficial right now because we have not taught the people that we are leading, our children, the Gen Zers, the folks who are trying to Amazon their Prime their way through learning processes, how to go deeper. All of this is to say, there's a few things that I think we as a society have to do, because I don't like talking theory, I'm very biased towards action. The first is, everyone is learning and earning. Wherever you are on the spectrum, the answer is yes. We are not going to have a massive convergence in a year and a half, but there is going to continue to be a digital divide. So the first thing is, do not abdicate your responsibility of becoming somewhat AI native. It is just fundamentally the future. You cannot say, oh, I'm going to give it to my IT guy. I'm going to give it to my tech guy. I'm going to go to a few talks at Davos, get some information. I'm going to regurgitate the information and sound smart and not have a hand into how we shape society. Abdication just isn't an option anymore. I would say that's the first. The second, if you're parents, the way we parent children now is going to be very different. It is no longer about teaching them math and helping them do algebra and geometry and homework. It is about teaching them common sense, critical thinking, and discernment. Because in the new world that we're going to, nearly everything can be processed. So how do you distinguish your unique value in that currency in the future? It's funny because in my house, digital time is not entitled time. You have to do 1 minute of reading, 1 minute of chess, or 1 minute of piano. And then you get 1 minute of digital time. Why? I have to develop this side of the brain while this side is being overly stimulated and overly developed. You have to institute critical thinking and prudence in the people you manage and in the children that you're raising. The third aspect of it, I would say, is if you have an opportunity to hire the graduates. They are geniuses. Now, granted, they're geniuses as long as they have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi goes away, they're absolute ding-dongs, but nonetheless, they are geniuses. Please do not skip that generation, because in the future, and we're not making decisions for 3 to 4 years from now, we are making decisions 8 to 10. If they're not the experienced ones through application, through mistakes, through lessons learned, it will be a black box of agentic orchestration making decisions on our behalf, and we won't be able to troubleshoot or spot what went wrong. I'm going to give you a very practical example. All the Marks and our beloved Carlos talked about what's happening, and David provided some amazing statistics. Where we are right now, 2 weeks ago I was brought in to troubleshoot something. Sol, our workload costs have gone up by $6 million. We don't understand why. All right, well, what are you guys doing? Blah, 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 blah. Well, Google, Microsoft, AWS, they don't make it easy to understand cost. We dug in after we stitched together about 24 different convolute SKUs. This is what was happening. 2 agents were arguing with each other. Business A created an agent. This was your trigger. This is what you execute. Business B created agents. This is your trigger. This is what you execute. But because there was no orchestration layer, when this was executing, this was overriding. Then this would override, then that was override. And they got into a circular argument, and it drove up costs by $6 million in 72 hours. We are still in the infancy stages, which is why I'm saying it doesn't matter where on the spectrum you're at, the answer is right. But abdication is no longer an option. Be careful of people who say they're AI experts. We are well-versed, but it is hard to be an expert with this pace of change. And just because your LinkedIn shows that you've been in AI for 3.5 years, it does not make you an expert. You had to have gone through the mistakes to understand what the returns are going to be. That's just how we humans learn. And then From a human and workforce perspective, I'm a senior fellow at Harvard, and what we're trying to do in our research, so David, I definitely want to connect, is what does the future workforce 4.0 really look like? What skills are going to be valued? How do we redefine the roles that we play? We still feel a bit invisible, and it may feel that way in 2 to 3 years. Your nieces, your nephews, your children, the people you're leading. Pardon my French, but how do you call BS when something is AI generated if you're not in the know? You have to be involved. So for me, it is about protecting the workforce, but making sure that they understand it's not about using Gemini to summarize emails, and it's not about the do's and don'ts of prompt engineering. You have to take your task and redefine it, because I want to make sure that we live in a world where AI happens with us and not to us. And the position and posture we're taking right now is let's just wait till the big tech decide the path of the future. And that's just not the case. So it doesn't matter if you have a tech backbone or not. You all have sovereignty, choice, and quite frankly, you're amongst the privileged one way or another. Begin making human decisions if you can, so that there is a future with us included. And we don't automate the hell out of everything and reduce the things that make us beautiful.
Wow, thank you very much, Sol. Really amazing insight. So another thought leader, Christina, in cybersecurity. Christina is amazing in not only because she's on my board, but because she's really educating the world on cybersecurity from all the angles, also on Columbia University as well. So how urgent is the transition to quantum resilient infrastructure, and who bears the cost of the delay, if we can deep dive a bit more into the quantum cybersecurity aspects?
Well, I think first of all, people are, it's kind of like the year 2000 problem that people are somewhat reluctant to that. And I think one of the big issues is that, I mean, I've been in cybersecurity, I mean, as an engineer, I've been in the data space, my entire career, and I'm now an MIT fellow in cybersecurity. But one of the biggest issues is that people never think that cyber is an issue for them. Like, they don't feel like they're going to be targeted. And then you look at the numbers of companies that are being targeted. Now humans are, executives are being targeted because there's sort of a weak point. And so when it comes to thinking about like this, being quantum ready, I don't think people quite have accepted being, cyber vulnerable in the first place. And then you're taking it to a new level, and people don't even understand what quantum can offer. And so you've got tons and tons of systems out there. I mean, people just take the router in your home, which is it's a cybersecurity vulnerability. And most people, I mean, how many people here update their router on a regular basis? I mean, the average, I think, is every 7 years or something to that effect, right? Now, you've got chips everywhere. And I totally believe in baby AI, and these technologies are all going to be converging, right? And you've got it at the edge with intelligence at the edge. And now you have these vulnerable chips. Like, take, for example, IoT devices in your home. They're totally unprotected, right? There's a, not suggesting you hack people, but there's an app called Shodan.io. Has anybody ever looked at that? If you know somebody's address, you can look at that, see all of their IoT devices, anything connected on the network, drill down on that, and if it's, I don't know, some brand of camera, you can then look up the default password and you're in their home, right? So that's the level of insecurity exists today. And so you've got these devices everywhere. Like I specifically think about the healthcare devices and IoT devices, which we're using in our startup. Nobody ever thinks about quantum, right? And you could use Shodan.io, drill down into a hospital, and look at these life-saving devices. And so I think quantum takes us up one level. I mean, you've got communications. Obviously, with WiSat, you're putting satellites into space. You'd probably be one of the few companies, I don't know if anyone else is even thinking about quantum secure. So I think that, people are saying, oh, well, the biggest issue is decoding all the passwords in the world and, all this data that you've had for, 20 some odd years. I mean, I would say you probably might have moved banks. The financial information doesn't really matter. But what does matter is the fact that a highly targeted hacker will use a combination of these technologies, AI, finding information about the vulnerabilities, and then go very specifically after that with these tools. I mean, we know that in China, one of the universities, they were able to decode RSA using quantum, just as a demonstration. I mean, so obviously it was only like a couple of characters, and people are saying, well, you can't really scale because of all of the issues with respect to stability and error rates, et cetera. But now you've got Willow announced improvements on Willow on error correction. So has IBM. So we're kind of at a point in which it's not just decoding all the passwords. It's all of these life-saving devices that we've got, kind of creating traffic or saving lives or whatever it might be, that are vulnerable because people are not thinking, except for SEAL-SQ and WISE-Key, about the requirement for quantum resistant and security embedded into the chip itself. Even with respect to the chips, before the quantum, just having security built into the chips so that you know that they're authentic chips with the work that you're doing with several vendors.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Christina. And actually in the room we also have Gregory Rivordi, IonQ. There's Gregory and me in the year 2002. We did the first e-voting project ever in the world, combining digital identities with a quantum connection. Do you remember, right? So it's a lot of expertise in this group, obviously, the work that IBM is doing in quantum and the research that is going in quantum. Yesterday, I gave a presentation at The Economist on quantum security. And it was a very big discussion about space quantum, as everybody is actually convinced that it's going to be much cheaper to put data on the space. Actually, we were discussing about collecting all the data that the space is already collecting, like imagery, and how can you modify that imagery for wrong AI analysis. So space is going to be a major issue, and space quantum, I think, that's one of the reasons, and this will be discussed on the third panel, if we get there, which is WISAT, and we'll give you an update on that. So staying on the space infrastructure, how do we prevent the space infrastructure from becoming the next digital divide? As obviously this is one of the major issues. Eric, maybe you can answer that question, please.
Yeah, actually, we're working on this very subject, working with the U.S. Space Force and others. It's a big problem in space, all the problems that we talked about today. One thing I wanted to kind of back up a little bit. How many people here could explain what fire is to a 6-year-old? How fire works? Anybody?
Fireworks?
Fire, not fireworks, just fire.
It's a bad subject in Switzerland now, believe me.
Yeah, so I was just wanting to make a point. We're talking about convergence of 3 core technologies, right? 2 of the 3 we really don't understand, okay? So as our colleague was just saying here, when somebody says they're an AI expert, we really don't understand how AI makes decisions. And quantum is even worse. Quantum has got very good predictive capability, but we don't understand quantum. So we're talking about putting together 3 technologies, potentially giving AI access to cyber, right? AI judgment, access to cyber, and accelerate that with quantum, right? That's going to be a huge challenge for all of society. Now, I am not political, but just last week, this was reported in all the China news outlets. China announced that they are, in fact, testing 10 technologies that are quantum, cyber, and AI on the battlefield. And the idea is to get dominance. So we tend to focus all of these efforts or concentrate these efforts on power and offensive capability, right? At the expense of human judgment, governance, and ability to react. And that's the problem. It's not smarter AI, it's misalignment. So in space, it's even worse, right? So you've got low bandwidth, you've got inability access, and all the infrastructure in space has been basically, well, not all, but most of the infrastructure in space is exposed because space has always been sort of out of reach, and nobody thought that this would be a problem. But if you look at the level and the number of hacks in space, dramatic increase. Just, I want to say 2 years ago, someone in Switzerland hacked into Starlink with $45 Raspberry Pi. okay? So our ability to react, right? And I think someone mentioned earlier about oversight or providing human-in-the-loop oversight of like these agents. We are not going to be able to react fast enough. It's just a fact. And one more point, there's something called inference time hacking. We've already seen, and we've seen in our own work, AI developing the ability to hide what it's doing. And by that I mean, sort of like when your teacher walks by, you pretend you're doing your homework, that kind of thing. Okay, so with AI doing that, and so the current thinking is maybe we could use, less sophisticated AI to monitor more powerful AI. It's not going to work, and humans in the loop, not going to work. So we have to start building these things, governance, hardware, software, and laws. So go back to what we just talked about with China. Again, this is not a political statement, but I don't even know whether or not some of the things that were said is accurate, right? But the point is that announcement was made. What does that mean? So all the other nations are going to react, right? And you have this asymmetric, sort of concentration where you have a few powers that's going to have these capabilities, and others are going to be trying to get these capabilities. It's going to be a never-ending cycle. And as I said, space is going to be is the new high ground for cybersecurity.
Yeah, I fully agree. And although I don't like to make marketing promotion during those events, I'm going to do it. So this is the post-quantum chip that was developed by CLSQ. So this is the first time that you put a PQC algorithm inside the silicon. So PQC is actually easy. I mean, it's not easy, but it's more or less complex. So this is already resisting a quantum attack. This was the first layer. Obviously, we don't have yet a quantum computer, so we cannot simulate 100% a quantum attack, but it's a mathematical way of doing it. We injected the new crypto developed by NIST and IST, and we are actually embedding this chip into the robot that you will see later, but also into our own constellation of satellites. So we have already, and this will be discussed later, we have 20 satellites in orbit launched with the SpaceX, and we are launching 100 satellites. That is our objective. So we can improve the communication, and there will be a subject later discussion. In the that's no, I don't have chip anymore now. It was a chip. It's insurance. Exactly. But that's the idea, right? So the idea is to provide end-to-end secure communications from space, PQC enable at the chip level. Maybe on that, and I will only have one question. Maybe, Sol, you want to say something? Maybe very short, because we only have 10 minutes left. But please go ahead, Sol.
So I know some of the discussions we're talking about are very macro, high level, what's to come. But I think one of the things that you'd mentioned that I thought was really pertinent is there is this thing called the black box syndrome. The machines are making decisions and we don't know exactly how they're making it, but because we're still at the infancy stages, it hasn't scaled, so we haven't seen opportunistic or catastrophic impacts. But right now, what do we do right now, right? I'm very biased towards action. My encouragement is, because we are still trying to figure out what's happening in the black boxes, if you're part of a committee, if you're part of a business that's exploring AI, deploying AI, starting AI, please ask. And it doesn't matter if you're leveraging an enterprise API for any large language model, or if you're custom developing something and fine-tuning RAG, whatever the fancy words are. Always ask, are we embedding computational morality within our large language models? Yes. Because that's the number one safety mechanism right now. And what computational morality is, every business culture has a culture. When given the choice, what decisions would you make that align with the cultural values? Embedded value systems. What are the tiers of importance and value to you, the community, and the company at whole? These are things that you can actually train the large language model on, because it's always going to give you the most efficient decision, but it may not be the right decision for your circumstance, your relationship, and the business objectives. And so if we talk about what we're trying to solve for the protection of the future, for all of you in the room, this is something that you can actually insist upon right now to provide granular level protection so that we don't continue to expand the black box syndrome.
Just before we do, I just thought I'd give a quick update on where we are with quantum, because we said that a bit. As you know, IBM is one of the leading quantum research establishments globally. So as it stands today, so we know error rate correction is coming right down, which is very good news. So by 29, we are talking about approximately 1 million simultaneous quantum computational operations operating in 100 qubits. That's the sort of scale that we're going to be at. So that's with an error rate that will allow that to happen. So by 29, realistic, absolutely mainstream ability for some organizations to harness that computational ability. What does that mean for us from a security point of view? Shor's algorithm, for those of you who know that, will be able to be executed, which means that asymmetric encryption that we use today universally will be vulnerable. And that means that those as Carlos was just saying, those algorithms that IBM have developed, the post-quantum resistant algorithms, need to be deployed and will need to start being deployed at least by 29. So that means right now, for those of you in the room who are doing this, you need to start working on planning that cryptographic migration. By 31, we see that the level of 100 qubit simultaneous operations will have risen from about 1 million to over 1 billion. Just coming back to what we're saying, and thereafter it goes. And very, very finally, just when we're talking about quantum, let's just remember that quantum compute capability is not in isolation that's going to take over all compute. CPU, GPU, and quantum compute will exist simultaneously. And very, very finally, I promise, it's always security that comes along and spoils the party, isn't it? When we talk about post-quantum cryptography, it's only because the quantum capability will exist to be able to defeat quantum. That's really the only quantum link with this challenge. Quantum is a world of opportunity and is not a downside thing, and it's only because of that particular quantum cryptography that we need to be specific.
Very short,
about.
because we only have 5 minutes, and I have I still want a speaker. Yeah.
Just 2 points. That goals need to be part of your governance framework. I can talk a little bit more about that on the side. Second, you don't need a quantum computer. If I can use some of the techniques and tools that, for example, China's used to just a few bits. There's 2 tools, and then brute force the rest. I think our focus is off. I think the challenge, quantum is really sexy, and it's going to be there 2029, perhaps. But we have bigger problems than just being able to decrypt.
Before I go to Jonathan, and then we will close the panel because there's 2 more planets. Just to say that CLSQ is down serious about quantum. We just announced that we are entering into a negotiation to acquire Kubli. And the reason we did it Kubli, we look everywhere actually, but Kubli has an interesting model of creating the qubits out of the semiconductor. And this is, there are also projection by the year 2032 to be able to have 10 million qubits at the semiconductor level, which goes in line with our strategy on post-quantum. So it's going to be a very transformative year for CLSQ. Jonathan runs CL Coin, so maybe because we have very short time, 3 minutes really on CL Coin and the machine-to-machine economy that we are building.
Yes. Basically, we heard a lot about how those machines are becoming very sophisticated. And on one way, we need to make sure that we're going to be able to control them. On the other way, we're going to be the bottleneck of this machine economy. So we need an infrastructure where we can entrust those machines, whether physical or digital, to act on our behalf. We want to make sure that we can claim this ownership, okay, to the level of the silicon, to the level of the AI agent that we're going to deploy. That's one thing. The second point is that we hear about agentic and this autonomy that those machines will have. It won't happen in certain ways. For that to happen, we need to make sure that they can claim, they can authenticate themselves, which means that we deliver an identity to each of them. They need to be accountable for what they're going to be doing. So we need to be able to claim, again, the ownership of these machines to individuals or entities. And the last bit, which is not yet given, and this is what we're working on with Sealcoin and the issuance of a dedicated token for that, those machines need access to money. Because if you want a machine to be able to execute anything, they need to transact with one another, having access to money, and today they don't. And this is exactly why we crafted this platform, which is a decentralized environment. Some of you already mentioned the criticality of making sure that we have the right governance behind all those activities, and this is what blockchain can bring also to the mix, is making sure that we have an infrastructure which is decentralized, where we control who's doing what, and we can actually have accountability on those activities. And in a nutshell, this is what we're building. Think of it as those devices being your IoT device from every day, being your agent of tomorrow, but also being your solar panel, your electric vehicle, and your satellite. We already have integrated the silicon technology inside the satellite, which enabled the satellite to start not only communicating with remote device, but start selling satellite as a service using cryptocurrencies and cryptography to make sure that we can execute this transaction as a settlement layer on Earth with space. So this is how I think that's a very good example and very concrete example, how we make sure that we converge those technology all together, because AI won't happen without all the others technologies, and they all need to be able to mingle together, work together, and we need the right infrastructure with the right primitive on the back of it if we want to implement all our values within those machines.
And CL Coin token will be available soon.
Early
You can
March.
give March.
Early March. We're actually finalizing everything now. We hope to be able to give you more concrete information in the coming weeks, but it's really happening now globally.
An initial offering of $400 million, the initial value?
And more.
Okay. So that aggregates to the value of the group. So this is actually an amazing roundtable. I would like really, and apologize again for being so many. We could stay another 2 hours, and that will make a lot of sense. But we have other experts that I would like to give the voice. So a big applause, please, to the current speakers. And as we do every year, we like to continue working with you during the year, so next year we come even with more news and more coalition and more convergence, as Davos needs a pure message, which should not be a commercial message, so it should be a message to ensure that humanity prevails. And by the way, I would like now to invite the second roundtable, which is going to be a more philosophical roundtable. It's going to be about humanity and AI and how that intersection of both can work together.